So many issues have happened when we've come to do a car, like a new type of car or a rare car, and we can't read it with the auto.
For months, Matt Armstrong poured everything into bringing a destroyed Bugatti back from the dead. Every setback made the finish line seem further away. Every breakthrough brought new hope. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the first real drive. It was supposed to be the reward for all the hard work. Instead, it became the moment that revealed whether this impossible dream had truly been worth it. The drive that broke the silence. For months on end, the world watched and waited for this exact moment to arrive. Every Sunday evening, millions of people sat down to find out whether Matt Armstrong could really pull off something that the entire industry had labeled impossible. And then the day finally came when it actually happened. The Bugatti Chiron Pour Sport rolled out of his Leicester workshop and onto a real public road for the first time since the original crash. The W16 engine roared into life. The dual-clutch gearbox engaged smoothly. The car moved forward under its own power. However, within the first few minutes of that historic drive, the dashboard began telling a very different story than the smiles on his team's faces were telling. Warning lights lit up across the entire instrument cluster in rapid succession. The traction control light started flashing without warning. The electronic power control system threw an error code at the same time. The airbag warning indicator refused to switch itself off, no matter what they tried. The stabilization system flagged its own separate fault on top of everything else. The handmade radiator that Bob from the machine shop had built completely from scratch began leaking coolant onto the workshop floor before they had even reached the end of the road. The coolant temperature gauge climbed past 190 degrees Fahrenheit before the fans finally caught up with the load. And then there was the part that nobody really wanted to talk about on camera that day. There was a broken crash sensor wire hidden inside the front section. There was a faulty battery interruption igniter that could not be sourced. There was a pyro fuse that simply would not behave the way it was designed to. These were the exact safety systems that mate Rimac had warned about on his Instagram video months earlier in the year. These were the exact same components the Bugatti chief executive had said could never be trusted to a YouTuber working out of a garage. Matt sat in the driver's seat with no windscreen fitted, the wind hitting his face at speed, the rebuilt monster running for real underneath him, and he laughed nervously into the microphone clipped to his shirt. He told the camera that the car was so fast, he could actually feel the blood coming out of his feet. And honestly, when you watch that footage back carefully, you can sense the exact moment the joy collided directly with the doubt. The car drives. The car moves. The car is truly alive again after everything. But on that very first drive, the loudest noise inside that workshop was not the W16 engine at all. It was the sound of every viewer at home, suddenly wondering whether Bugatti had been right all along about one very specific thing. To understand why that single moment carries so much weight in this entire saga, you have to travel back to the very beginning of the story, the crash that started everything. The Bugatti originally belonged to a young man by the name of Alex Gonzalez. He goes by the handle XAlexG on social media, and he is one of those Miami-based finance influencers who built a massive following by talking about Forex trading and luxury cars. According to his own social media posts over the years, he turned around $100 into a net worth of roughly $50 million before he reached his 25th birthday. He bought the purple Chiron Pour Sport because he wanted the rarest hypercar in his entire garage collection. Only 60 examples of this specific car were ever produced anywhere in the world. And then he proceeded to treat it like a piece of gym equipment. Long before the dramatic crash that broke the internet, Alex actually stood on the carbon fiber rear wing of the car and did squats directly on top of it. That single wing on its own is worth several $100,000 at retail. He cracked the carbon fiber under his own weight in the process. That should really have been the first major warning sign for everybody involved. If you are sitting at home right now thinking that behavior sounds reckless, you are most certainly not alone in that thought. The actual collision happened later on the busy streets of Miami. From the dashcam footage and the police reports that surfaced afterwards, the car nosed straight into the back of a small K truck at speed. The front end folded in on itself like a paper bag. The headlights shattered into pieces on impact. The airbags blew open across the cabin. The carbon monocoque took serious structural damage in the collision. The gearbox housing developed a deep crack along its length. The insurance company looked at the extent of the damage, then looked at the rebuild bills, and quickly walked away from the entire situation. They wrote it off as a complete total loss and shipped it directly to Copart, the well-known salvage auction house. What happened next is the kind of bold move only a Miami finance guy would even think to attempt. Alex took the full insurance payout for the car. Then he went online and bought his own wrecked Bugatti back at the public auction. The hammer dropped at a final bid of $1.656 million. After all the auction fees were added in, the all-inclusive cost came to just under $1.9 million in total. He now owned the exact same car twice over on paper, and he had absolutely no idea how he was going to fix it. That was the precise moment Matt Armstrong's phone started ringing in England. He is a British YouTuber from Leicester, with a workshop full of professional tools and a YouTube channel sitting at nearly 7 million loyal subscribers. He flew out to Miami within a matter of days. He carefully looked over the car in person. He shook hands with Alex face to face, and he then agreed to take on a project that the most powerful supercar maker in the entire world was about to spend the next 6 months trying to shut down completely. The first move that Bugatti made in response was so cold that it would shake even the most experienced builders in the entire automotive industry. The factory verdict. A few days after the wreck eventually arrived at the workshop, Bugatti flew an official technician all the way from France to Miami at the company's own expense. He walked around the entire car methodically. He measured every part of the damage with proper tools. He shook his head slowly. And then he delivered his final verdict in a voice that sounded more like a judge in court than an actual mechanic at work. The car was a total loss. The carbon monocoque was completely compromised beyond saving. The gearbox housing was entirely beyond economical repair. The repair bill in genuine factory parts alone would land somewhere around $1.7 million before a single hour of labor was added on top. If that had genuinely been the end of the story, this entire saga would have died right there in that workshop. However, Bugatti was not finished making their position clear to the world. Within a matter of days of that verdict being issued, the unique serial number of the car was locked inside the company's global parts ordering system. That meant no dealership anywhere on the entire planet could order so much as a single windscreen wiper for this particular Bugatti. The company had essentially erased the car from existence on their books. It could only ever be fixed in one specific place by one specific team, located in Molsheim in France, at a final price that would basically equal the cost of simply buying another Chiron brand new from scratch. Alex was absolutely furious about the whole situation. Matt was much calmer about it on the surface, but on the inside, the wheels were already turning quickly in his head. The two of them then recorded a now legendary video together where Alex stared directly down the camera lens and gave Bugatti an open ultimatum of just 24 hours. Either the factory unlocked the serial number and agreed to sell them genuine parts at a fair market price, or the two of them would start 3D printing every single component required themselves and then showing the whole process publicly to the world. They wanted Bugatti to understand they were completely serious about it. This was the exact moment that changed everything for both sides of the story. Because somewhere inside a quiet Croatian office building, somebody very senior at Bugatti Rimac saw that public ultimatum being made. And the man right at the very top of the entire company did not send out a corporate lawyer in response. He did not send out a press release through a public relations team. He picked up his own personal phone, opened the Instagram application, and started typing out a direct message to a 25-year-old Forex influencer in Miami. What he wrote inside that private message, and what he later said in the public video that followed, would go on to split the entire international car community right down the middle. It would also expose something about the man himself that almost no viewer watching at home knew anything about. It was something that made his entire warning sound deeply and painfully ironic to anybody who actually knew his real backstory. The chief executive of Bugatti had a hidden secret in his own past that the audience was about to discover for themselves. When the CEO stepped in, the chief executive's name is Mate Rimac, and he is a fascinating figure in the industry. He is Croatian by nationality, born in 1988 in the former Yugoslavia, and he is the founder of Rimac Automobili, the electric hypercar company that absorbed Bugatti back in 2021 as part of a major industry deal. The first time most ordinary people heard him speak about this particular project, it was actually inside a private Instagram message addressed to Alex that opened with the words, "Hey man, Bugatti chief executive here." After that came the famous public video, posted directly to his own Instagram account, watched by millions of people in under a single week. His message inside that public video was carefully prepared, measured in tone, and at certain moments actually quite genuinely persuasive to the audience. He said that all the talk about Bugatti service costs floating around online was simply not true at all. He said the headlights that everybody thought cost $174,000 were actually closer to $58,000 in reality. He said that you cannot 3D print a Bugatti monocoque or a Bugatti gearbox in a workshop setting. He told the watching world that there are only a few places on the entire planet with the right equipment for this job, and only a few people with the right factory training to separate the rear subframe of a Chiron from its monocoque. He warned everybody watching that if a rebuild like this was done incorrectly, people could genuinely end up dying inside the car. And here is exactly where this story takes its strangest turn of all. Because long before Mate Rimac was a billionaire chief executive officer of anything, long before he was the man Volkswagen handed Bugatti to on a plate, he was just a teenager in a small garage in Croatia with a broken 1984 BMW E30 parked outside. He blew the original engine in that car during a drift session at a local track. He could not afford to buy a brand new replacement engine for it. So he ripped the entire combustion engine straight out of the chassis and built it back up as an electric vehicle using parts that were significantly cheaper than the proper alternative. He went on to rebuild that single BMW around 5 separate times. He set multiple international acceleration records with the very same car. He literally built his entire global empire on the exact same principle that he was now telling Matt Armstrong was completely impossible. The man warning a YouTuber that you can never rebuild a complex car in a small workshop somehow became a billionaire by rebuilding a complex car in a small workshop. Whether you personally side with Mate or with Matt in this ongoing fight, that single piece of context genuinely matters to the conversation. It is the exact reason the comments under his video split almost perfectly down the middle online, with one half calling him a responsible chief executive and the other half calling him a complete hypocrite to his face. And then Matt opened up the wreck back at the workshop and started carefully pulling parts out of it one by one. What he eventually found hidden inside that Bugatti is going to leave a lot of viewers laughing in disbelief and a lot of paying customers absolutely furious with the brand. The parts nobody was supposed to see. You really do expect a $6 million hypercar to be built entirely from custom components forged inside some secret Bugatti facility deep in the Alps. That is the image the brand actively sells to its wealthy customers. That is the entire reason that people pay the prices they pay for these cars. Matt Armstrong started carefully taking parts out of the car one by one on his channel, and the reality of the situation turned out to be something quite different from the marketing. The first big discovery was hidden inside the airbag system. The knee airbag and the front passenger airbag inside this particular Chiron Pure Sport carry part numbers that are directly shared with the Audi A3 hatchback, the same humble Audi A3 that a university student might drive to class every morning. Those airbags are available online from various suppliers for under $50 each. The steering wheel airbag fitted inside the Chiron is the exact same physical unit fitted to the Aston Martin DB11. It is not a similar unit at all. It is genuinely the same one. Then came the discovery of the air pumps in the engine bay. The secondary air pumps in the Bugatti engine compartment are lifted straight out of a Volkswagen Passat saloon. The fuse box layout inside the cabin looks almost identical to the one fitted in a Lamborghini Gallardo from well over a decade earlier. The accelerator pedal that controls 1,500 horsepower from the engine is a molded piece of plastic, not the billet aluminium that a typical Bugatti owner might assume he is pressing every time he opens the throttle on a fast road. A standard Bugatti oil change costs around $25,000 to perform. That specific number has been openly confirmed by exotic car rental companies and finance journalists for several years now. A Bugatti service contract spread over 4 years comes out to roughly $500,000 in total. Tires run $40,000 a full set. Wheels run $50,000 a full set. And buried inside all of that premium pricing, quietly sharing part numbers with cars that cost less than the deposit on a Chiron, are airbags lifted directly from a humble Audi A3. To be fair to Bugatti as a company, an identical part number does not always mean identical validation in every case. The company has spent tens of millions of euros homologating each individual component for use inside a 1,500 horsepower hypercar. Mate Rymick actually made that exact point quite clearly inside his own video. However, the moment a viewer at home sees an Audi A3 airbag fitted inside a $6 million hypercar, a piece of the magic dies on the spot, and it does not ever come back easily. The work that followed was the part that would prove whether the entire repair could ever actually be completed in the workshop. When the rest of the world flatly says no, somebody quiet usually says yes. The quiet man in this particular story is an Irish welder by the name of Bob. He runs a small YouTube channel called The Machine Shop, and his Instagram bio simply reads, "We do a bit of welding." Bob's real backstory is the kind of thing that most viewers have never actually heard about. He sold every single thing he owned back in Ireland. He rode over to England through the snow with 70 pounds in his pocket. He then knocked on Matt Armstrong's workshop door without any prior appointment. He has openly spoken about being 38,000 pounds in debt with the tax office. He has also said on a recent podcast appearance that he secretly hates working on cars and has no real interest in Bugattis as a brand. While Bob was doing his work on the radiators, a company called E3 Customs handled the interior of the car. They retrimmed the seats, the dashboard, and the steering column in a custom purple and white scheme matching the exterior. The two halves of the car were then bolted back together using 14 titanium bolts. The transmission mount, which had 2 huge tears in it from the crash, was welded back together stronger than the original. What do you genuinely think about all of this? Was Bugatti right to protect its reputation? Or did Matt Armstrong just expose a brand that has been bluffing for years? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below.